Bitcoin, or when you think of cryptocurrencies, which is what we are going to talk about today, what do you think first? Give me a line or a couple of words about Bitcoin. What do you think? What is Bitcoin? It's about data mining. Okay. What else? Value. It has value. All right. Okay. What else? Electronic currency. Sorry, who said it? Electronic currency. All right. Okay. Anything else? Sorry. Volatile. Highly volatile. Yes, sure, of course. Well, anything that has value for some time would. Anyway, I do not know. So we'll see. Okay. So I kind of gauge my audience by asking this, whether to figure out what you think about Bitcoin cryptocurrency. So there are a few things that comes to mind when you talk about this, right? This topic, Bitcoin overall. So one is, of course, that. So value, volatility. Yeah, sorry for that. I didn't cause it, but got a huge dip. It's again sort of stabilizing out here. And that is, I think, a couple of days back or 3 days back data. I didn't really refresh it, sorry. But that's from a website called CoinMarketCap, which is something that we often follow to figure out what the current price and what's the market value of these cryptocurrencies are. And those, according to the market app, are the top few right now. So we'll start off with Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, Bitcoin Cash, EOS, Litecoin, Cardano, and there are a bunch of them. Okay, so that's one picture that we all have in our mind when we talk about cryptocurrency. The second picture, which might have come in news more often than not, is this. If you know this, you would recognize immediately. If you don't know this, thankfully, it's Silk Road. It's a deep web marketplace, mostly for drugs and things alike, which is supposed to be illegal. Also, to some extent, for, say, hidden art or rather precious art, electronics that you can't buy in a country, and so on and so forth. So anything that's quote unquote illegal in a space could be bought here. Could be, when I say it's not really active as of now. Silk Road was shut down by FBI a few years back. Silk Road 2.0 came up, that was shut down as well. And there are other marketplaces around, but that's something that we often relate to Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. Because anonymity of transactions. So Bitcoin is really, really famous or infamous. Agencies and other spaces of the government, we look at this and we say, well, that's not pretty good. That's not good at all, right? There's a third point to it. So those are two faces of the coin, but hey, it's a digital coin, so it can have many faces. So that's your third face. And the third face is a little different. The third face is what is possibly the cause of Bitcoin coming into existence. And it's essentially liberty. This line out here is the last line from something called the Crypto Anarchy Manifesto. So crypto lets you do some anarchist movements and anti-establishment movements. Bitcoin is probably one of the most effective realizations of an anti-establishment movement in finance. So that's the third phase of Bitcoin. I'm not sure. Do you know this guy? Anyone? It's like a graphic. Yeah? No. Yeah, WikiLeaks. He's the founder of WikiLeaks. Is Julian Assange. He is also a manifestation of the crypto-anarchist movement in the 90s. All right, so let's see. A lot of us are here possibly because we fear or we are happy or we are excited about this big thing called the cryptocurrency bubble or the Bitcoin bubble, right? So whether we are really into the bubble and what's going to happen in the financial domain with this is my first disclaimer, is nothing to do with me. So I should come forth very clearly that as an NTU technical person, I really am not interested as much in the financial movement of cryptocurrencies. I don't come from business school. If I had, I would probably be. I come from a computer science background, so all my interest lies in the technical details of how a cryptocurrency works. And that's my goal, to tell you about the technical side of Bitcoin in as simple way as possible. So if we understand what's going on, what is this Bitcoin? To be clear, we do not really care so much about how a currency is made. So when we say there is a dollar note that I'm carrying in my pocket, we do not really go into which paper did MS use for this, which ink did they use, how did they manufacture it. We don't care about it as much. But naturally, because we have no authority of manufacturing it anyway. Even if we knew all the ingredients, we had no right of manufacturing that coin or currency. And that's perfect. That's an establishment-based currency. But Bitcoin, just on the other hand of the story, is not a centralized establishment-based currency. So it's probably nice to know what are the ingredients. If you want, maybe you can go ahead and make something alike. It's perfectly fine to make another Bitcoin or Bitcoin-like object called cryptocurrency and then use it as currency in your own domain. That's perfectly fine. So we need to know what are the technical details behind it. We'll take a look at that. To clarify, if you have a lot of questions regarding the financial aspects of it, regarding the governance aspect of it, regarding the regulations aspect of cryptocurrencies, please wait for the panel discussion. As you see, the names up here, we have from two different points of view on cryptocurrency trading. One from the regulation side, Mr. Mohanty, who will be talking on behalf of MAS and talk about regulations and governance around cryptocurrencies. And the other one, Mr. Peter Singh, would talk about a lot about the investments and the finance side of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. So just hang on, we'll come there. Good. So cryptocurrencies. If this was an undergraduate computer science class, I would start with crypto and then go slowly into currency. Here we switch it around. We start with currency. So you all know what currency is. So without further ado, that's what currency is, right? You understand currency as a medium of exchange. That's the first and foremost role of currency. You can also call it as a store of value, which is a fine term for it. It has value, so it stores value for a long period of time. That's fine. But medium of exchange is what we use currencies mostly for. And we have come a long way, right? We have started with barter systems in the early days when there was no establishment. We used precious metal like gold, silver, other things. Again, no establishment involved. Moved on to established currencies where you had those precious metals made into these denominations called coins, but still you had value in them because of the metal, not because somebody said so. And we moved on. We got into paper notes. In effect, they don't have any value unless somebody says so. And they don't have the same value everywhere. They do not necessarily need to have the same value over time. They generally don't. They fluctuate. So when we have come here, now you understand that it's based mostly on trust, on a centralized authority who has created it. And they said there is a value, hence there is a value. So it's based on trust. When you come up here, that's based on a promise. It's mostly credits. It's mostly money that you can take on a notional face value, and then you have to repay at some later stage, or exchange money through a mediary like Visa, MasterCard, and so and so. Again, centralized and based on trust or based on promises. This, of course, similar thing, but now we have moved into the domain of technology. Based on trust, based on promises, but there is a technical side to it. You worry about its security not because you lose your wallet. Now you worry about its security because you lost your phone. So you have moved into a different territory altogether. Okay, so when we start from this, the first thing we need to note in case of anything that calls itself a currency, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general, is what does a transaction look like? How do I transact? In normal currency, I transact by giving the currency to somebody and then they give some goods or services in return. How does Bitcoin operate? What does a transaction look like? Let's see what a transaction looks like in a standard online banking. When you log on to OCBC iBanking or DBS iBanking, how do you do a transaction? Think of it. In every banking system, there is a bank. So there is a centralized body. Everybody is connected to that. And now when you make a transaction, when you do a transaction from one party to another, it, in a nutshell, mostly looks like this. You transfer money, you call it with some denomination, you call it by some unit. When you want to transfer it, you never really have to communicate with the person you are doing the transaction with. If it's an online banking, you do not need to call him and say that, hey, I'm sending you $120. No, you simply log on to iBanking and then send that person $120. How it operates is, it goes to this bank, the centralized authority. The bank maintains a ledger, an accounting system. They would go into your account and figure out if you really have this $120 to spare. If you do have that, it subtracts from one account and adds to another account. That's all. Right? So it's not paper currency anymore, it's digital. So if it's digital currency, you really don't hand over something to somebody else. You really follow a centralized banking authority and a centralized ledger or an accounting system. So for the purpose of this technical area of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, so for the first part, essentially for the talk, just keep in mind, our definition of a currency is essentially an accounting system. That's all it is. It's an accounting system. It keeps track of who has what amount of money and who gives whom what amount of money. If you can control that whole thing in a systematic way, you have a robust accounting system, hence you have a robust currency, right? The value will come to that. The value will build up slowly. But for the time being, is it all right if we follow this notion? It's just an accounting system. We are going to keep track of accounts. All right. So this is great. Why do we believe in this accounting system? Why do you believe in Singapore dollar? It's government backed, of course. What else? Trust. In whom? Who are you trusting? The bank, sure. The exchanges, maybe, if you do currency exchanges, okay, who else? So you have a trust system, right? You trust that this account is maintained properly. So this is something that I technically stole, but philosophically got inspired from the MAS website. So that's on the Monetary Authority of Singapore website. That's how they define their role in the economy of Singapore dollars. They say they maintain the integrity, security, quality, and confidence in currency. And those are essentially what you're looking for. You want integrity. What does it really mean, integrity? It means that the dollar bill that I'm carrying in my purse cannot be duplicated, cannot really be forged, cannot be counterfeit. That's a basic objective. You do not want your money to be counterfeit or forged. That's the integrity part. What about the security part? It says the promise that you're making of transferring a currency to one to another will be kept. So it's not that what you transfer is, you have some value for it, but then when you transfer it, the value just got lost. That's not how it works. The quality of it, well, the quality also comes with the fact that who does create it? Who creates this currency? So creation of a currency is something that we have to look into. We understand that mints can publish currency. It's essentially a publication, right? That's a note that somebody prints, all right? Coins somebody makes in a mint. When we come to a different kind of a currency, we should ask the same question. Who makes it? Where does it come from? And confidence, that's probably the most elusive of all. What do we even mean by confidence in a currency? We have pretty high confidence in Singapore dollars. Of course so. It's the strongest in Southeast Asia right now. So it's a pretty strong currency and we have confidence in it because we believe in the system that maintains it. I think 10 years back, 2006, 7, around that period, Zimbabwe had to print out trillion-dollar notes to sustain their economy. So their economy slapped altogether. And they had to print out notes with $1 trillion value on it. So think of it. Do you have confidence in that economy anymore? Probably not. If you think of your bank getting hit by hackers and all your money stolen, do you have confidence in them? Maybe not. So confidence in a currency arises from confidence in several points of failure. And that's where Bitcoin arises from. How many points of failure do you have? Do you have a single point of failure? Well, then all the attackers would attack that point of failure. If it fails, the confidence in the currency is gone. Do you have multiple points of failure? Maybe. Then an attacker has to attack all of those. Now let's think about this. That's a bank who takes care of all of these. That's a government who takes care of all of these. And we suddenly pull the carpet off your feet. And we ask the question, what if there wasn't any? What if there wasn't any bank? What if there wasn't any government? What if there wasn't any nation? What if there wasn't any borders? It's just a bunch of people who come together, like in this closed room that we are now. Forget about, clear your mind out of banks. There is no bank, there is no authority, there is no government, and there is no country. It's just us right here. And we have to survive, we have to create a currency of our own. That's the first idea behind cryptocurrencies. That's where it comes from. Keep the thought in your mind for a while and think of all those things that we talked about. Who do we trust? Who creates coins? Who ensures that it's not forged, it's not counterfeit? Who takes care of the confidence? See, it's all us. And most of us don't know the others. So where do you even start from? That's a basic question to ask, right? All right. This idea came up almost with the advent of internet, early 90s. This is a group of people called cypherpunks. Not sure if you have heard the name. They are the guys who started this crypto anarchism or the crypto anarchist movement. Cypherpunks too. 90s, as you see, most of them did something in the 90s which resulted slowly, step by step, into Bitcoin. Let's go back in history a little and see what they thought of, and then we'll try to connect the dots. This guy, Phil Zimmerman, invented PGP, pretty good privacy, and something called the Web of Trust in 91, when the internet was in its nascent stage. The idea was identity need not be controlled by anybody centralized. We could have our identities created as we want them to be, and we could create them as many times as we want to be, and we would still have nice, decentralized, without any authority, trust. Pretty bold concept. 97, Hashcash started off by saying, can I prove ownership of something without the need of anybody else giving it to me or lending it to me or really transferring the ownership? How do I do that? So they came up with something like a challenge response protocol for this. So we'll see what that results in. That was Adam Back. Then VDAI came up with B-Money. Extremely similar to what Bitcoin is today. It's 98. Keep in mind, that's 10 years before Bitcoin. BitGold is so similar to Bitcoin that a lot of people thought this guy, Nick Szabo, is the creator of Bitcoin. He denied. Probably he is not. But Nick Szabo was thought to be the creator of Bitcoin because BitGold as a protocol is extremely similar to how Bitcoin operates. The missing piece of the puzzle, which this four didn't really have so much, was solved by this guy called Hal Finney. He came up with something called a proof of work, technically a reusable proof of work. We'll see this when we talk about Bitcoin mining. You probably have heard the term called Bitcoin mining. That's exactly where this puzzle piece fits in. That 2004 invention would go ahead and result in the 2008 Bitcoin. So around August, September, October 2008, this paper came out. Now, in academics, we do things in a different way. We write a paper, publish it, and then maybe hope for some company would be interested, convert that into a patent, a technology disclosure, license it, make a company out of it, will be popular after that, and so on and so forth. Not Satoshi. This is not even a proper paper. It was just the other way around. He really published a software. And almost as an afterthought, to explain what the software does, he came up with this paper. It's like a white paper. So if you ask me, where do I find all references to study Bitcoin in technical details? Study the code. There is nothing else. The code is something that you have to read and understand to understand what Bitcoin is. Don't worry, not today. We're going to half an hour. So we're not going into the code. We'll just understand what it is from a very, very simple point of view. But do keep in mind, this guy is definitely not an academician. I believe not. That's not how academicians operate. When I say this guy, well, I should correct myself. It's a pseudonym. Nobody really knows whether it's a he, she, a group, an organization, whoever the person is. So I like Bitcoin pseudonymity. This guy is also pseudonymous. All right. So let's see what was the proposal? What changed the world? Exactly what threw us off into this whole new world of cryptocurrencies? What's the idea behind it? So the idea is this. Now we don't have a central authority, remember? It's just us. Outside the door, there is nothing. And we have to transfer money or create something of value and something of exchange between us. What do? So you want to send the same 120 Singapore dollar to another person. Where do you even start from? You can't go and log on to an iBanking system. There is no bank. So who does the accounting? Where is the ledger? That's the biggest question, right? Who even keeps track of this money? So let's assume for the time being there is a public ledger. Everyone can access it. Seems like a fantasy. No bank would allow that, right? Well, Bitcoin does. So you have got a public ledger. If you want to look into the public ledger, you can. Right now, the Bitcoin public ledger, the full size of it would be around 200 GB to 250 GB compressed. So decompressed, it would be somewhere around 1 terabyte. If you want, you can really install a piece of software on your computer. If you have 1 terabyte of space, download the whole Bitcoin ledger, look into everyone's transactions. Every transaction recorded thus far since 3rd January 2009. That was the first transaction, by the way. Remember the 2004 Hal Finney guy who devised proof of work? The first transaction was made by Satoshi to that Hal Finney. Again, thought that Hal Finney was the inventor. He denied as well. All right. So, what's so? That's very creepy, right? You can log onto a banking system, a currency, check the whole accounting ledger, and look at everyone's transactions till date. How would you feel about that? If I said I could log on to your DBS ledger, and I can look at everyone's account, and I look at every transaction in detail, would you be very happy? Of course not, right? It doesn't even mean you are doing something illegal with your money. You do not have to. It could be absolutely legal, but still, it's privacy. We all care about privacy. I do not want my account to be scanned by a stranger. So that's the best part. All these pictures that you see here are not people. They're identities which cannot be traced back to you. Hopefully. If they get traced back to you, then I know your account. If they don't get traced back to you, it's just a number, then it's like a Swiss bank transaction. An account to another account, some money went. I can see the money, how much it is, but I do not know who transacted to whom. That's not so bad. That's all right. All right. So suppose you want to transfer this. What do? You put it on the public ledger. So everybody sees, but nobody knows who these things are. Who is this and who is this is not there. It's just numbers. All right. Now, the second guy who received the money want to spend again. That's fine. How do you spend now when you want to spend $100? Who checks if you really have $100? So you do an iBanking transaction to somebody, you say, hey, you know what, I want to send 10,000 SGD from my account to that person's account. Somebody should check if you have got 10,000 rupees, right? Who checks that? The bank checks that. Of course, the bank has to check that. Otherwise, it would be an invalid transaction. You shouldn't be able to spend more than what you have. Great. Now it's a public accounting system, remember? Who maintains it? There is no bank. So I hope if it's a public accounting system and it's only us people out here, we are maintaining it. So I am maintaining it, you are maintaining it, everyone is maintaining it. For every such transaction, would you be willing to look at everyone's accounts and check, hey, do you have this money to spend? Only then you can spend it. Think of the amount of work. If everybody starts transacting simultaneously, all of us, not one bank, all of us have to go back into the ledger and see, hey, Surab wants to send $100 to Kirna. Does he have it? Kirna wants to send 200 to Yona. Does he have it? Who does this? That's sheer madness. So you flip the whole system around. You flip it on its back. You say, you know what? If you say you have to give $100, this guy has to give $100 to this. If you say so, prove to me you have got $100. If you have $100, give me a proof, I'll believe. But I'm not going to look into your account and check whether you have got $100. That's the crux of Bitcoin transactions. There is no accounts. Nobody checks into your account. If you want to make a transaction, you have to prove you have enough money. How does this poor guy now wants to prove he has got $100? Can he prove this? What do you think? Can this guy prove he has got $100 to spend? How would you prove it? Exactly. It's a public ledger. Everyone can look into this. This guy has got $100 not because he says so. This guy has got $100 because he points to this transaction and say, hey, I got 120. If I got 120 from someone, I can very well spend 100 out of it. Make sense? So if I got 120 from someone, I can of course spend it. So now what comes is the first technical concept of Bitcoin. You do not really give money to anyone. You do something what Sing Post does. How many of you have used the Singapore post boxes? I see a few in Jurong Point bus station and so on. Have you seen those post boxes, the PO boxes? Right, for delivery? Somebody can deliver a package. You receive a code from whom? Okay, so what happens? How does a person give you that packet? Not physically, right? What does he do? Yeah.
And then he delivers the symbols into the box.
In the box. So he doesn't know you, right?
He doesn't.
Lovely. So he doesn't know you. That's kind of anonymous. He delivers the post in the parcel where? In a post box. Great. So that's your address. All right. How do you get it?